Good morning, everyone. My name is Varun Jain, and I work with ET Retail. I am pleased to welcome you for the inaugural panel discussion of the day. The topic of discussion today is assessing retail's dependency on technology in the post-COVID era. We have now understood that dependency of technology for the retailers is going to increase in these uncertain times, and the businesses are also geared up to make this happen. Retailers will be looking to create a safer environment for their customers once they are inside their stores or shopping online. Reinforcing omni-channel strategies, contactless payments, in-store technologies to limit in-store traffic are some of the ways retailers globally are trying to create a safer and hygienic space for their customers. Today we have with us a very eminent list of speakers who will be discussing about the same. Please join me in welcoming Mr. C.K. Venkatraman, who is Managing Director of Titan Company, Arvind Medirata, who is CEO and Managing Director of Metro Cash and Carry India, Mr. Sadashiv Nayak, who is CEO of Big Bazaar, Mr. Martin Bailey, who is CEO of Star Bazaar, and Mr. K.T. Prasad, who is Managing Director and RVP Indian Subcontinent for Zendesk. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today for this panel discussion. We'll start the discussion with a very important question, and that is, what is your assessment about the use of technology in the retail space going ahead in the post-COVID era? The floor is open for all the speakers to give their views, and then we'll keep the discussion rolling. We'll start with Mr. Venkatraman.
Thanks, Varun. Our company sells a variety of discretionary lifestyle products to a variety of customers whose familiarity with technology is, across a range. But over the last 3 months in particular, I think almost everyone has got a much better taste of engaging with technology than earlier. And there has been, I would say, some kind of leapfrogging that everyone has done on the subject of technology. And because of the fear that people are having at the moment, and I think that fear will be there for a few months at least, of stepping out to buy, I think the role of technology, particularly the multiple aspects of omni-channel technology, will be very, very high in every one of the categories in which we operate. So to specifically answer your question, I think there has been a substantial acceleration in the role of technology because of what we are facing.
Arvind, your views on technology and retail going ahead, what do you think about it?
See, I will say that like demonetization gave a big boost to adoption of digital payments. The current pandemic will give a big boost to the omni-channel strategy for almost all the retail players. It's not that technology was not important earlier. It always played a very important role in every retailer's life and every retailer's business cycle. But now it will get a big impetus. So to talk about what it means in the context of Metro, we started a program called Smart Kirana program because our customers are essentially Kirana stores, the hospitality sector, hotel, restaurants, caterers, and a lot of services, companies and offices. So these people were already realizing the need, especially the Kirana mom and pop stores, to adopt technology to compete with the big e-commerce giants which are operating in India, because a lot of customers want to place an order online. So we had worked out a Smart Kirana program about 12 months ago, 12 months before the start of the pandemic, where we were enabling them to order directly from Metro using the e-commerce platform. We had given them point of sale devices through which their customers could place an order directly with them, like they could do with an Amazon or a Flipkart. So they could place an order directly with these Kirana customers of ours. It also had modules for them to run their store operations more efficiently. So for example, inventory tracking of different SKUs. We also had, data mining facility capability in that point of sale device, where they could look at the purchase history of different customers. All they needed to do was to look at capture the email ID or the phone number of their customers. And then if every purchase invoice was being captured in that point of sale device, they could use smart analytics to do targeted promotions for those customers. So, we saw that the adoption of this whole Smart Kirana program took some time because people were thinking they could still survive using the old methods, which is their relationship skills with the households in the neighborhood. But after the lockdown, we have seen that the demand for e-commerce and demand for placing an order on app has gone up multiple times. We now have almost 70,000 customers who are registered on this e-commerce platform. They use that to order with us. They have access to real-time information on our inventory, our pricing, and we have slab pricing because we are not B2C, but we are B2B. And they have a similar functionality for their customers. In the past, we saw that a lot of their customers are placing an order on the phone. Now people don't want to even make a call on the phone. They want to just look at the app and place an order. So we have facilitated that, and I think this is going to stay. It's not going to go back to the new normal, to the old ways of doing things. Kiranas and small business owners in India will adapt. And same thing we are seeing from the hospitality sector. So they are also asking for, because they are afraid of coming to the store to shop. There are a lot of restrictions which were there during the lockdown. And everybody is asking for a similar functionality, whichever business they are operating.
Sadashiv, wanted to understand from you how do you look at this situation and how is technology going to help us in future?
Yeah, so possibly I'll just deviate, and because I think Arvind has mentioned all that possibly needed in retail. I love the word he said, it's going to be a leapfrogging phase. So I'm possibly going to deviate and tell you what has been the module, what has been our kind of framework for technology. And if you allow me, I'll just give an example, not of a distant past, maybe a year back in the homeware category, where our buyers, and there was a huge debate happening saying the floral pattern of storage containers is now passé. And they hence they wanted to kind of change it, and we actually made a large shift and moved out of the floral pattern. And to our surprise, we found that the sales started tanking in storage. And I remember that time a person who was not in the buyers and merchandising team came back and said, "This is what happens when you rely blindly on technology or data." And there was some merit of truth. In fact, there was a quotation given to us just to make it the point, saying it is impossible for a mathematician to be a mathematician without being a poet in spirit. And frankly, we only asked that it was a young trainee, so we asked the person to come with a framework. So the way we look at it is we look at, and the simple framework was mathematical in a way. It should add customers to us. It should subtract errors to us. It should multiply convenience, be it for a customer or for the store staff, and it should divide the bottlenecks. And happy to kind of share examples, but adding customers, let's say immediately after COVID, one of our group companies, Central, has used virtual shopping to immediately get business going because customers were still unwilling to come. So you had people, our staff, going around inside the racks and doing a virtual talk with the customer and booking orders. For dividing the bottlenecks, I think we were hardly into deliveries, but we ramped up from 0 to 10,000 orders a day in a span of 40 days. So happy to share more examples, but really for us, it is about these 4 frameworks which we use before looking at any technology.
Coming to you, Martin, your assessment of the situation and how is it going to be in the future?
Yeah, so similar to all food retailers in India, we've not stopped through the pandemic. We've been there for our customers. So we probably went through the biggest change that we've probably seen in a decade, certainly in India. Leapfrog is definitely something we've been doing. Even if you look at the introduction of any technology, it should be under the purpose of being leaner, simpler, and stronger for both your customers, the internal customer as well as the external customer. Internal customer being our colleagues as well. What we find is the needs and the desires and the security and safety. It's irrelevant if you're a colleague or your customer. This is affecting everyone in every community. So Nielsen had actually brought out a report very recently about the hyper integration of innovation and technology to avoid any physical interaction in the midterm will be as important as food and shelter. And I would agree with that. So if you think of the change that we went through in Star Bazaar, even though we are an omni-channel with our Star Quick partner, we've had to bring in a digital queuing system to ensure safety passage to the store. But that also allowed us in Star Bazaar to assess the amount of people in our store. So again, protecting our internal customer just as much as our external customer. we've had to be more omni-channel than ever before and think more dynamic because the consumer didn't want to leave their home or couldn't leave their home. So we've had to enhance our home delivery and even talk about the development of a contactless delivery system that's never been seen before in India, even talking about click and collect that we developed in 3 weeks, which would normally take 6 months just from the technology building, never mind anything else. But we had to do that because our consumer was saying so. It was the safe thing to do because they could come, they could order online, similar to what everybody said, and then come to the store and literally pick it up in 5 minutes and then go again. And even society delivery, this was something that was obviously unique to the pandemic and maybe mightn't be a long-term scenario, but societies were being locked down but forcefully, and also societies were not wanting to leave as well. So we had to engage with communities, and we had to do that either through email or through digital or through our omni-channel partner Start Quick. But the landscape in food retail changed extremely quickly. And I would say once we come on to my colleague in Big Bazaar, we've probably changed the most out of any other services because we were essential services and required to be there for feeding that nation.
Great. Mr. Prasad, I would like to ask from you, what kind of technologies retailers can use, to increase the customer experience in the stores during these times when customers are really scared stepping out of this houses?
Thanks, Varun.
Yeah.
I think I wear a different hat in this panel. Represent a CRM software company, and we do provide the digital transformation technology underneath for many of these players. What we have done when COVID has impacted and we've realized that this pandemic is real and it's declined. So we did a little bit of dipstick and launched a benchmark study. We found out what is the customer really feeling about it and how the customer really getting impacted. For our record, it felt that the customers are actually satisfied, across the stable, and the stability in the CSAT was there. I think one insight that we learned, actually, I think the customer started learning that, this impact is impacted industries, businesses, and everybody. I think the expectations were, I would wait in the line or probably in the telephone line for a longer period of time because the number of requests gone up. Or even I'm talking to somebody on a digitally on a channel, maybe on an online chat, I would probably end up getting queued, like Martin talked about digital queuing and stuff like that. I think that's the reality. Of course, there are certain industries got impacted on the CSAT a little higher, like the airline industry, where the number of people calling up, talking about cancellations was higher. I think retail, it's a need of the hour and essential services, so people had a lot more patience. But it's beautiful to see how the businesses have really embarked the journey. I think it's not about market capture, it's more about providing the essential service. And we've seen how really businesses really adopting new amount of technologies like social messaging, like WhatsApp, or even online chat, or even completely talking about a Twitter, social media, other channels. The number of channels adopted by customers and businesses has gone up on social messaging. And the traditional channels like telephones and things of the nature went down because when the pandemic is hit, when companies switched to BCP, they would probably want completely ready to have the telephone lines working from home for those customer center service agents. So we've seen those impacts. But I think what is real, this pandemic is going to be there for some more time. And we all need to brace ourselves to find a new world, which is probably towards the end of this pandemic. And hopefully by end of this year, we will see that. But digitally, the customers are adopting these technologies. The businesses are embracing into this omni-channel journey that my panel talked about. We see the same trends, but I think the insight is actually the customers have more patience during these pandemic times. And that's a beautiful insight to learn.
One thing that whenever I used to talk to technology players before the COVID-19 situation, there was always a sense that, Indian retailers shy away from using technology or to invest in technology. They had a complaint that it's very difficult to convince them to, change their existing technologies and jump to a new one because of various reasons, cost factor and return on investment. Now, after this situation, when we know that technology is going to be very useful, I just wanted to understand from all the panelists are we willing to spend on technology now? What's the kind of willingness we have now? So maybe Mr. Venkat can tell us about it, his views.
For the last 4 or 5 years, we have invested substantially in digital technologies, particularly with respect to retail. And therefore, there's no question of, in our case at least, we had gone down that path. It is just that the acceleration of the adoption of that, we are now starting to see. The only complication in our life, unlike many of the companies on the panel, we sell products which are of, want products as opposed to essentials. And therefore, we have the additional challenge of getting people, creating desire for these products when people are not even dressing up. I mean, our products are required as part of dressing up. And if people are wearing shorts and t-shirts and doing Zoom calls other than on a call like this, it becomes very difficult to sell them an expensive watch or a pendant and all that. But leaving that aside for a moment, certainly the video demonstration of a product, shortlisting of products on the website so that your time spent in the store is reduced, and you do it through an appointment shopping so that you're reassured that when you go, there is no crowd, or you select these 8 necklaces, we will bring it to your house so that in the safety of your house, you see the 8 necklaces as opposed to in the possible worry about the Tanishq store. So these are the ways in which technologies which were already in place, but the acceleration in terms of some of them were evolving a little slower because of our own timelines that we thought were right, but now they're getting accelerated because the situation has aggravated the need for that. And therefore, just to say again, in our case, there was no question of, oh yes, now we believe in this technology, but we've always believed in technology, and this is, of course, given us an additional reason to accelerate it.
Any other panelists?
I wanted to say a few things. While adoption of technology has really gone up, and in the months of April and May, we saw a lot of people using the e-commerce platform to order. But as the lockdown has been eased up, we are finding that we are seeing a lot of footfalls in the stores. So long as you can reassure people that you maintain all the norms around social distancing, around safety, and they will not catch an infection when they come to your store to shop. We are finding a lot of people want to come to the store to shop, and especially relevant for food and grocery, because in the areas like fresh fruits and vegetables, you look at seafood, you look at chicken, mutton, etc. Even commodity spices, people have this thing that they want to touch and feel the products. But one thing is which we are also realizing is, as Mr. Venkatraman already mentioned, they want to spend less time and they want to spend time more efficiently. So there is also need to look at improving the customer experience when they come to the store to shop. And one of the challenges that many of us face is around the checkouts, because checkouts take a lot of time and we have very large baskets in our stores. So we are also looking at some futuristic technologies where you have smart trolleys, where as soon as you put an item in the trolley, it's automatically scanned. And so you don't have to wait at the checkout. You just have to go and make the payment. But there's also very interesting insight, which I think is very relevant to India. So what we do is the technology that we have, which is being used in Europe, is ultimately you weigh the trolley. So after they have put everything in the trolley, you wait at the checkout or just before the exit. And if the weight is within a certain deviation, it's okay for them to leave. You don't then check the bills with the items in the basket. But we have seen a tendency that a lot of times people will initially scan 1 kg of, let's say, rice. But ultimately, they may replace that bag with 1 kg of cashew. And you could have a lot of shrinkage in the process. So that's one of the barriers we are seeing in terms of adoption of technology in the Indian context. The other area where technology is playing a role is in terms of supply chain, because there were supply constraints. You also don't want a lot of the trucks to wait at the receiving docks. So you use technology to give appointments using bots to your suppliers so that they don't spend too much of time and the turnaround of the trucks can be much faster. So we are realizing technology has a role to play, but you cannot really replace the urge, at least in the Indian context, of people to still come to the store and buy. And maybe they were staying in home for too long and they wanted, and our experience is very different from what I'm seeing in the shopping malls. the footfalls in the shopping mall are 10 to 20% of what it was before the COVID level. But in our stores, we're finding it's almost back to normal, especially in cities where restrictions have eased up, like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Calcutta, etc.
Right. Arvind made a very interesting point, Varun. I just wanted to add to it. While Arvind beautifully described how suppliers will be, giving a tokens in terms of queuing and stuff like that. What we're seeing in technology adoption in retails, in offline, I think that's a very important sector. I think all of us have figured out how digital e-commerce and all of that can be done. And I think embarking into the journey. I think the next set, because this pandemic is going to be there for a longer period of time, we're seeing a next set of technology evolution on taking appointments for offline store visits. So you can maintain a social distancing and stuff like that. Can I visit, let's say, my closest favorite retail store at 4 o'clock? Maybe the store can accommodate only by social distancing norm, maybe 40 people or 100 people. Can I get a token of that so that I can go and spend my time peacefully, like beautifully said? We are seeing such technology, we have such technology that's been adopted in Europe already. I think Arvind also made a reference to Europe, and we see that very closely. But it can be something that we see in the retail sector is adopting in offline channels, especially store visits.
Right.
You're right, Varun. I think we should differentiate between technology as seen by the customer and technology which goes behind. I think there are 3 other retailers here and very experienced in their own way. Frankly, there's no way we'll survive without technology at the back end. Yeah. If you to anecdotally look at the example of this shirt which I'm wearing, which is a knighthood shirt, it'll be there in full sleeve, half sleeve. It'll be there in 3 design patterns. It'll have 40 style patterns, and it'll have 6 sizes. Now, to make it available in 280 stores in 170 cities at the right time, so that summer you get half sleeves and winter you get full sleeves. I think without technology, there's no way out. So I feel the retailers in India have been abreast about technology at the back end. Arvind mentioned the supply chain. Yes, we could surely do much more at the front end. I'll give you 2 examples. One to what Prasad just said. We already have what is known as quick checkout. Quick checkout is where you can book your slot for cashiering on the web, and you can come and do it. We've been doing it for the last 2 years. The challenge was this, that you have many people who just book the slot and don't turn up, because frankly, the time is for reaching the cash till at that time. You can't. So we tried mobile POSes to adapt to that. Even then there was a trouble. And what we found the balance eventually is that we made customers pay up 100 rupees while booking the slot, which you would give back as a refund when they billed. So frankly, we're adopting it, but we already done it for the last 2 years. We have to make it larger now. And the second point which I would like to make for adoption of technology is also about the ecosystem. And Arvind and I'm sure Martin as well would have broken their heads about planogramming in India. And because there are enough people who come and say, why don't you adopt planogramming softwares? Now, frankly, the ecosystem you're comparing with UK and US, which works on 95% fill rates, 97% fill rates. We don't have those fill rates today, despite whatever improvements we do. So frankly, if you put a planogramming software, which is going to be fully automated, AI, ML, and then you have 65% fill rate coming, it's all going to collapse. So frankly, it's an ecosystem. We'll have to continuously keep investing in the ecosystem as well. It's a positive journey. We are moving ahead, but it'll take its while. So I think we should differentiate between technologies which are in the back. I think all of us have adopted it. Technology in the front, which is to engage the customer. Enough examples, but we can take it as we go along in the panel.
I had a very interesting insight actually to share on this queuing system, because we started this and then we experienced brawls in our stores because there are a lot of people who land up at the store without appointment. And when you try to stop them, they create a big ruckus. So this is also one of the interesting insights we had, because we started this in Mumbai, where we had serious issues of staff attendance, given that Mumbai is one of the most affected cities as far as the pandemic is concerned. But then we have people who say, no, okay, I've not taken an appointment. This is not a doctor's clinic. You need to allow me to enter. So that situation is also happening. And then we said, maybe it's better off not to have the reservation system for shopping at the stores.
So for the few stores which you did quick checkout, Arvind, we had to dedicate to the cash tills in that store. We said no one goes other than people are doing it. So you can call it inefficiency, but we still wanted to stick to that couponing system for it.
Yeah. So from a Star Bazaar point of view, I think the panel is right in terms of certainly the last point, the ecosystem, and being as vertically, digitally integrated from farm right through to checkout. Obviously in Star Bazaar, one of our biggest USPs is around our fresh offering and how well we've developed that. Even pre-pandemic, we were sourcing probably around 70% directly from farm. As the supply chain broke down across India, we had to adapt. And one of the things that we had already previously developed, but then enhanced, was a digital connect app that brought it straight right to the farmer. And we're currently on 83% direct from farm to our stores. So even the front end and back end, your original question is there a desire to invest? There is no option to invest. Previously, certainly in my 25 years experience, a lot of industries, a lot of companies went through digital transformation and lost and wasted a lot of time and a lot of money. I think what this is really sharpened up, certainly from our side in Star Bazaar, is actually the hyped up demand, because we're seeing more footfall coming through our stores, but we're also seeing double the online transactions, or our click and collect, or our society delivery. That hyped up demand just means more people are wanting to engage with us in Star Bazaar. So the business case becomes a lot easier, but the reality is we need to know what is the longevity of this. So the pandemic and social distancing, everybody can say minimum this calendar year, if not further. We need to adapt, but the light touches and light investment and certain technology advancements allows us to do that a lot quicker. I come back to my original point. In Star Bazaar, we developed click and collect through our partner in Star Quick in 3 weeks, from literally develop, build, execution, and customer facing. The agility part is important, and that will shorten your spend, shorten your investment, and will allow you to reinvest thereafter. So actually agility is probably the biggest thing that we've been forced to do because of consumer demand, especially in food essential services. But yes, there can be a lot of money wasted, but I don't think we're in that situation where we have time to waste money.
One opportunity, just to build on that, what Martin said, which I see in the Indian context, is not about omni-channel, but also about blockchain technology. Because when people are sourcing fresh, whether it's fresh chicken or seafood, even products which are sourced directly from farm, if they can find out from which farm it has been sourced and when the product was picked up from the farm, or when the seafood was picked up from the ocean or river, it actually makes a big difference. It gives them that assurance of food quality and safety. So that's one area which I think all the food and grocery retailers will have to look at, because this is very common now in the US and western part of the world, even in places like China. So this will probably get a boost because safety is becoming a big issue.
One of the things that we believed in for many years, and we have invested substantially behind that, is the combination of CRM and analytics. And across our multiple formats, we have a multi-million database of loyal customers. And when we customize the connection of the company with that individual customer in terms of by looking at the purchase history over time and by looking at the events in her or their life, and connect the two and make an offer which is unique to that particular couple or individual, then you're finding the results of that effort, very, very productive and effective. And so when I know that the birthday is 1 month away and she likes these kind of watches or these kinds of jewelry, and she tends to buy at these times of the year because of whatever reason, and if I also happen to have her husband's contact within our database, then we know that men do tend to forget anniversary purchases, at least till close to the date. So if we get to the man well in time and in a way become the helping hand of the man a month before the anniversary, and especially if it's a milestone anniversary like the 10th or the 20th or the 25th, and also tell him that, look, we know that your wife likes this kind of watch or that kind of jewelry, and we can help you, navigate this and sort of earn a lot of points for yourself in a way. We see a lot of potential, and we've been working on it and investing in it considerably over the years. So in a way, the situation is not the trigger, but the situation is pushing the customers certainly adopt to technology more faster than earlier.
Yeah, I wanted to make one point to build on what Mr. Venkatraman said, which is about this CRM program and data analytics and data mining. So being in metro, we allow only those people who have a valid business license to come and shop. And we have a metro card given to everybody. It's like the wholesale club model that you see in the US market. So we have been using this database because now for every customer, we have their entire purchase history for the last 15 years. And we are now realizing that, at least during the last couple of months, April, May, when there was some drop in footfalls, that how can you sell more to your existing customers basis their past history? And we also have a sales team that goes and sells to the hospitality sector, to large offices, institutions, to the kiranas. And we are seeing that now that it's very important for companies, especially ours, to move from relationship-based selling to data-based selling. It's both the science and art of retail that, we have to follow. Because, in the past, you had a good salesperson who had a very good rapport with certain people and they could push them anything. But now they have to use data. If you could get armed with data, your productivity and what you can sell to them, the share of basket can go up in a much more significant fashion versus pure relationships.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect description of the loyalty that's required in certainly in these times, because it's important for any brand to ensure trust is there. So when you talk about that omni-channel and the offline and online, one of the things that connects it together is, for certainly in Star Bazaar, is our club card. And that loyalty program being digitized will provide a hyper-personalized brand experience. And regardless of COVID or post-COVID, certainly the next 5 to 10 years in India, that is adapting quicker than any other nation. I firmly believe the importance of that hyper-personalization will give assurance, will give trust, and it is a brand experience either offline or online or anything in between as well. And that digital communication and that digital loyalty and data mining all has to be geared towards that individual customers. And when I talk about Star Bazaar and doubling their online with our Star Quick partner, as well as increasing our footfall, that has seen huge loyalty to the point we actually have 91% of our entire customer base that comes into stores or online that will engage with the club card. So loyalty and digital loyalty, back to data mining, back to even special occasions, even in food retail, is going to be hugely important.
Sure. I want to ask this question to Venkat. Your products were not categorized as essentials. And now you, in your initial remarks, also said that grocery is something that people would take, but your product, they'll have to make, when they're not dressing up, it is very difficult to sell it. Wanted to understand from you, Venkat, as in, can we use technology to predict demand now, as in how consumer will behave in the post-COVID era? How are you using technology? Is there a shift in demand and shift in behavior, consumer behavior? What do you think about it? Yeah.
The recovery that we are actually experiencing is, I would say, reasonably good given the kind of products that we actually sell. And certainly in the case of eyewear and jewelry, there are other reasons. I mean, jewelry is a store of value product. It's a safe haven product. And in these uncertain times, it's almost like keeping your money in the bank, especially when the price of gold is rising and all that. So we have an advantage in a sense. About predicting, honestly, there is nothing like that that we are doing. But what we are doing is, we have what we are describing as a gold standard in terms of the shopping safety protocol in the stores. And we are using this, and we're using customer testimonials about our safety protocols. And because of our huge database, we're able to directly connect with millions of our customers and telling them, look, come. You don't have to worry at all about coming to a Titan company store. And we got everything sort of figured out in terms of social distancing to sanitizing of the product, wearing gloves and stuff like that. And people who have come and experienced that have gone back and told us such good words, which we are using to sort of tell other customers as well. So we're not trying to forecast, but we are certainly trying to, get people to come out and shop. Because in our case, it's not easy to get people to shop sitting at home. Right. Our products are not naturally aligned to that, especially if I take wedding jewelry where maybe 7-8 people have to come together to buy. So it's not an online omni kind of product. They have to come or we have to go, one of the two. So that's how.
Mr. Prasad, do you have a point of view on this, as in how retailers can predict demand in these uncertain times? How do you look at that?
With this esteemed panel like this, it's difficult to add to beyond. But let me give you a perspective of what we see, and probably some of the trends might be applicable to India and might be applicable to beyond. We see that the convenience and personal hygiene, as well as the hygiene of the stores, is going to be in the minds of the people and will play in the minds of the people for a long period of time. If you look at human behavior and if they're used to something for more than 3 or 4 months, it'll be there in their minds for a long period of time. So post-COVID, I think the digital commerce journey will continues to be there in some form or further. So and I'll draw parallels, the remote work from homes, and we said, how can the economy run with everybody work from home? Can a company be completely BCP and still execute? I think companies have figured out, all of them have figured out. Employees have been very cordial, and the businesses have done the same. Now businesses are looking at, okay, post-COVID too, we should have certain amount of workforce can stay at home. That means if you reflect back onto the industry, you will still have post-COVID, some people will be working from home. That means the target audience are still out there. So I think the strategy that we adopt need to be currently whatever it works now will continues to work beyond, and you got to hold that. It's not a short-term strategy. It got to be a long-term strategy, sustained. Number two, like Venkat talked about, I think it's coming into the minds of the people. Is it safe to go out and shop? I think if those are the things will stay in mind, like all of Indians, the number of campaigns that we've seen on the television and everywhere else, people washing their hands and personal hygiene that I talked about will continues to be there. Do I have a hand sanitizer at the entrance of the store to apply? I think those are things that people will play in mind, and it will continues to be there. Now, from a technology point of view, the panel talked about it, there got to be a back end of technology. They got to be the customer facing technology. Both become super important. But if you can bring both together, if we can somehow figure out customers getting a convenience who has a time to schedule appointment, they know what they want to buy, like click and collect that Martin talked about and Arvind talked about it. Figure out if that can be like currently, Sadash, we talked about 2, counters. Can we have a little more? Of course, you could have. I think these are the things which will continue to stay. What we strongly feel, customer experience in these times and post-COVID will become very, very important. And I think it's glad to hear that all the panelists are thinking about how customer experience can really play a big role. There are items like Venkat talked about. You can't have a wedding jewelry shopping probably at home. It's far difficult. But I'm sure Titan and their company and Venkat figured out how do we do this safe shopping in retail store, and probably some on technology and some at personally visiting to the store and stuff like that.
And Sadashiv, you have seen an uptake in online orders during these times. So you see that consumer shifting to online more and shopping more on the online channel or Big Bazaar. How do you look at it?
The online and offline, I don't like that word. Online and the physical channels are 2 channels for distribution of goods. Yeah, and I think they already existed. I can talk of Big Bazaar. For us, the discussion was, if you're going to go online, how do we make it sustainable? We don't want to kind of have something which is just a pie in the sky, flash in the pan, not profitable. So the whole journey for us was to make sure that we are sustainable in the online space. And as everyone's mentioned, how do we kind of safeguard the physical place? Frankly, to me, I think the only thing in our mind, and food, grocery comes naturally. I think Arvind has mentioned it very well, so I'm going to keep it aside. But I share Venkat's challenge when it comes to apparel. For us, apparel for any store would anywhere between 30 to 40% of the revenues. So how do we get that back? Yes, online will be one means to do it. But we are using all the means to also get people excited about apparel and possibly get them back to store. So the whole strategy, and I'm going to only highlight that, is really how do you make content move towards commerce? I think we've got very good ecosystem built in with Google, with Facebook, the package. We have programs running with them. With Twitter, we do a price discovery campaign with Twitter. we are kind of accelerating all of them again. But the whole idea is get people excited to buy clothes again. Whether they come to our stores, we are ready with safe and hygienic stores. If they want to buy online, we are now ready with the online part. So I see them as two channels. I think the real thing for me as a marketeer is to make sure that people get excited to consume again.
I just want to come in on a very, very critical point that Sadashiv made. See, we have spoken across the world, in the country, we have spoken so much about working from home. And if working from home is a way to reduce the cost of a company, is one thing. And I'm sure companies are looking at it like that. But if working from home is a way to reduce, to deal with the safety that going out represents, then we have a huge problem sitting. Because if everybody is working from home, they are not only working from home, they are not going to be dining out. They are not going to be going to somebody else's house because of the same fear. They are not going to be going to a movie hall to enjoy and so on. If they're not going to be doing that, why do they need more shirts? Why do they need more shoes? They can just loll around in shorts and Hawaii rubber slippers all the time. So therefore, this point about exciting people about wearing the new shirt has to happen before that person decides to buy. Where to buy, how to buy comes after that. But if there is, like, there was a beautiful video set in Scotland, I don't know if you people had seen it, of a young couple treating their young sons, 8 and 4 or something like that, to a make-believe dinner in the house as if it was a restaurant. And the sons were the guests of the restaurant, the mom was the waitress and the dad was the chef. Okay, because both the sons were so pissed off about staying locked into the house, they created a make-believe restaurant. So I have been telling all my people, can all the Zoom parties that are happening now, can it all be dressed up? Everyone dresses up for the Zoom party. Can you dress up for a work from home situation? You wear a suit, because half the time you're in t-shirts and shorts for an office meeting. So if you're in t-shirts and shorts all the time, how is Raymond going to sell? How is Clark's going to sell its shoes, right? So we need to help people reimagine life within the home if they're not wanting to get out, or sort of start getting them to enjoy life and come back to dining. Maybe you wear a mask and go to a friend's house and still enjoy.
Yeah. Varun, I actually wanted to make a point which is relevant to the same discussion about when people are going out to shop. Because we are seeing that people were really getting tired of staying at home. And as soon as the unlocking happened, phase 1, we saw a lot of people going out. In this situation, for a food and grocery retailer, I presume even for other retailers, it's very important to make sure one area where, which Sadashiv talked about, in India, we suffer from supply chain challenges. The fill rates are 60-65%. So one area where technology is certainly needed and can help us is improving availability. Because the worst thing which can happen is a customer takes the trouble of coming to your store. They stand in the queue to maintain social distancing norms. And then out of the 50 articles they want to purchase, 10 articles are out of stock. You can't have a more disappointing experience than that. So every company also has to think about investing not just in the content experience and the omni-channel part, but also making sure that your availability is 98-99%. So you offer a great experience to that customer, because nothing is more disappointing than making all this trouble and finding I have to now go to another place, or I go and order online. Or even if you're ordering online, if you're not able to find 20% of the article, which was the case during the months of March and April for many of the e-commerce companies, people will immediately switch to another brand. So availability also helps drive loyalty for both online and offline.
Yeah. In fact, I want to give one answer to Venkat. Venkat, we've started doing in Zendesk as a company. So we have this Friday catch-up that we bring everybody together. And we say that dress up to the Friday. So people have to wear like a formal dresses. People are getting tired of seeing in t-shirts, because that's the only thing that you can see. You can see only till here. And when we started doing this, and I believe that, the women employees started getting makeup on that day. So it's beautiful to see. He said, at least one day in a week to be able to dress up for the real.
The Friday dressing has become the reverse.
Exactly.
But for today, Varun, Arvind and Martin are following Venkat's suggestion. They're all in a coat.
Exactly.
Yeah, very important, very important. But, maybe to kind of reiterate.
European company.
Maybe to reiterate the kind of importance, and maybe the food retailers being kind of we're as close to the new norms as possible, because we didn't shut down throughout any of the point of COVID in the last 10 weeks anyway. Is the original one was winning the hearts and minds. It was the safety, the sanitization, social distancing. We're now in a situation where we have to differentiate and we have to excite, let it be in Star Bazaar because of our fresh offering, or indeed our stores that have our Zudio stores as well in terms of our apparel. That has to entice and excite. And one of the biggest transformations, especially in India, where we were still traditional in our media spend, is we had to go straight onto digital because there was no physical papers. There wasn't anything like that. So our digital communications went from hearts and minds to excite, and then back to the rightful point of actually let's not disappoint when they get into store. So the development of not only the time slot management, i.e. the queue system, so we can anticipate people coming, volume in our store, therefore volume of shopping as well, but also the e-shopping list, so people can create an e-list already that will be specific to that store with its availability, because the stock holding has to be active, and therefore they will only have on a shopping list what they have. Also then the development, which isn't necessarily matured in India right now, is the scan and go process. So you're literally your mobile phone, once you go in, you just scan the product and then you leave. That is something that will excite, but at no point in time can we disappoint. We're still in a very, very important situation here in India, where the rupee value is like never before. And coming from Europe into India, that's the first thing I learned very quickly, is the importance of the rupee. And people, all levels of people, understand exactly to the rupee what everything should cost. But the world is getting more expensive. The operations get more expensive. So technology enables a more dynamic, a more leaner, more simpler, stronger process to be able to survive in a very costly world right now. Because if you've got half the number of customers and double the average spend that we saw at 12 weeks ago, that's not easy to cope with in terms of stock holding capacity. But even these introductions of a digital queuing system, the frictionless experience from sitting on a couch to walking through a checkout is so important right now, and you won't disappoint. So your customer experience will then move from the basic of availability to product development. Obviously, own label is going to take a big part in the future here, and that has to bring an element of, ensuring the customer does feel valued. There is product innovation, there's something new. If it is on label, you obviously have the full digital integration as well as the vertical integration in terms of process and product life cycle. So the opportunity is huge. But it is in a more costly world right now, especially in food retail, as my colleagues will definitely say. So technology isn't just about wowing the customer. It is about the basics of what the customer needs. But the business still requires cash. Cash is king right now in India for survival. And we need technology to improve efficiencies, both for the internal customer, our colleagues, as well as the external customer, our actual customers, as I said at the start.
In fact, just to build on that point, we also realize there is a need for a lot of innovation on the product side. So it's not just good enough to keep on selling what you were selling before COVID. Because there was a discussion on apparel, I also want to share some customer insights. A lot of people who are coming to our stores feel that apparel is unsafe to shop. They don't want to get into the trial rooms. They don't want to buy apparel because they believe somebody else would have touched it. And what if that person was positive, even though we follow all the safety norms? So there is now demand for antimicrobial clothing, antibacterial clothing. We're also seeing there's a lot of demand for bed sheets by the hospitality sector, which are use and throw. And they again have antimicrobial properties, and many of the manufacturers have started making those innovative products. The other category where there's a big demand is for UV products, which can help sanitize your smartphones, which can help sanitize surfaces, because people believe you can catch an infection if you touch a surface which is infected, or if you touch a doorknob or a door handle which is infected. So there's a big demand for these UV products. And there are a lot of enterprising entrepreneurs in the country who have started manufacturing them, though initially a lot of the sourcing was from China. So that's another interesting trend that we are seeing, which is around innovation, product innovation.
I'll just add something to what Martin said, Varun. I think other than product innovation, I think we are using all the data cohorts and all the databases to really use price elasticity exercises to the hilt. In the last 4 weeks, I mean, we had to be honest to pricing of the key essentials, but we were also running out of cash. And so we had to really maximize the price which you make with every customer. So frankly, a lot of the investments you done in data exercises was really coming out in its full form in terms of price elasticity. We could actually go back and construct 60 price modules for the non-essentials part, so that we maximize the value which you get. So I just thought I'll add to what Martin said about product innovation.
Sadashiv, also I want to understand from you, as in a concept like Amazon Go, where you don't, it's a cashierless store, you don't interact with anyone over there. So I think it's more relevant now. So do you think these kind of concepts can make their way into India now, much earlier than expected? Or how do you look at this?
See, I don't know much of Amazon Go other than what we've seen on the net. So we've seen all of us seen that video. I would say, and I'll build on the point which Venkat and Arvind made. I think for us, frankly, a lot of the customer-facing technology has to always be along with the customers. Yeah, we can't be too ahead of them, or we can't be, of course, we can't be lagging them. So to my mind, and when I mean customers, I mean the entire vendor partners, everything, all of them together. Maybe there's a lot of spaces which you still need to do. So while we reach Amazon Go and whatever the stuff is, I can share two things which you're doing. We're already on the Amazon platform with something known as Amazon Now, which is a 2-hour delivery, and Amazon Fresh, which is a 2-hour delivery mechanism. Big Bazaar is already a microsite on that, and we are a partner with that. So all the stuff it needs to make sure that we integrate with the Amazon world's best practices for Prime and for Prime Now and Fresh is something which we are doing. Secondly, we're doing a exercise to really get our apparel and the home space into RFID. It's a closed group pilot which you're doing, and it's progressed very well. Just to give an instance, and I know it'll excite all my fellow retailers now. We tried to do a stock take of 50,000 garments within 20 minutes, which possibly would have never been possible earlier. So to our thought, Go could be the final representation of what the customer sees. I think there are a lot of building blocks to it. Amazon Prime Now and Fresh really told us to get our data right, scratch all the stuff, keep the haircuts properly, make sure that we are kind of, there's no data inconsistencies. And something with the RFID is telling us that we'll need to get our layouts right, the way we stock up our products right. So frankly, I think there's some way for us to go as retailers to put on all the processes. I'm sure we'll be there. Why go? Possibly we'll do technology which will be far more relevant to the communities of India. And I'm sure we'll all be there whenever the time is right.
Prasad, you want to add to it? Your views on this?
I think with Sadashiv, the way you mentioned, I think it's a building blocks. And you know, I could talk from a little bit 2 layers down on how the customers' engagements nowadays it's happening. And because every businesses have apps, and the number of apps on a phone could be little limited on on visibility and usage and stuff like that. We are seeing that embarking onto channels like WhatsApp has been very high in the last 5-6 months, and especially importantly in the last 3 months that we've seen a huge spike of businesses seeking WhatsApp as a channel to communicate to the customers, including taking orders. In fact, we have seen businesses said, we will not give you printed receipt, but we will WhatsApp you the receipt to you so that you have a digital copy of it, which you could reference, and it also safe and secure. And from businesses, you have a phone number of a customer that you can build loyalty and you can reach out to and stuff like that, right? Second, I think Martin talked about loyalty. Now, driving shopper behavior on either a digitally, on offline channel, understanding the customer very clearly, analyzing what is the reason why the customer is driving the shopping, right? And once we know it, then you can drive the conversation. But we see how WhatsApp really helping, including, I can talk technically about government of Karnataka. Actually, when the pandemic started, they've driven a WhatsApp number for residents to place an order for their essentials. So you could see, and it's not because of businesses wanted, it's also customers are drifting towards it. I think there are more number of people moving towards the customers, moving towards a telephone or any other channels that was predominant, or email. People don't want to write lengthy emails. They want instant gratification. Imagine we all in the retailers, we all want to get a customer feedback. And I'm sure Sadashiv would know, and Venkat, and Arvind especially, that I in fact, as a consumer, I business with, and I do business with everybody. And one thing that we always ask, hey, what is the customer satisfaction? We send out a review on a SMS. you send out a email, what is the response rate that you get? So to really get out the shopping experience. But imagine doing that on a WhatsApp. And we've seen businesses telling us that the response rates have significantly gone up when they've engaged customers on WhatsApp. I think it's a clear winner for both businesses and consumers that we've seen in the last 3 months, as a social messaging technology has really helped increasing customer satisfaction, stickiness and which is basically loyalty for businesses.
In fact, Prasad, we found this in Bangalore when we did during the COVID period. A lot of senior citizen customers refused to use the app which we had launched. So they were either familiar with voice or they were familiar with WhatsApp. So we actually gathered that, and we have now actually requested the WhatsApp team of India to say, how do you convert free text into an Excel order or a SAP order? Because it's free text, right? Surf 1 kilo, the surf spelling may be wrong or whatever. 1 kilo, maybe kilogram or kg. So how do you convert free text into an order? Is a project which you requested them to take up. So you're right. I think India, and that's the part, Varun, which I'm saying we'll have to adapt. The senior citizen customer in Bangalore did not want to use the app. Now I have to respect that. She said, give me a voice. Can I put it on Siri? Can I put it on Alexa? Frankly, we were not ready. So maybe we'll find many more answers, like converting the WhatsApp free text order into an order.
I think what's just been described is a perfect example of being agile and going to that customer where they don't want to come to you. But one of the things, one of the first words that I'd learned, I think totally adopted in India, was the word jugaad, and there definitely is an element of that required when you're going through a situation we've never been through, and certainly in my generation anyway. I'm 25 years in food retail, but with jugaad, if you want longevity and you want to make it a sustainable pillar of growth or sustainable pillar of cash and a P&L effect, you do need to link it all together. So perfect example of WhatsApp doesn't speak to another system that doesn't speak to your supply system. The whole frictionless experience, both for the internal customer and the external customer. So that is vendors, that's our colleagues, that's our actual customers and business partners. That's where the sweet spot is of being totally efficient. And I said it a few times now, we need to be vertically, digitally integrated. And that is undoubtedly where you're going to be the most efficient and the most agile. But we didn't predict the speed to COVID. So there is a requirement to adapt, but then we need to then make it a business scenario. And this is back to one of your original points around, are we in a situation about spending money or investing in technology? The change that we went through, especially in food retail, it automatically told us what we don't need and definitely what we do need. But coming back to that frictionless experience and that vertically, digitally integrated process is undoubtedly the sweet spot for a new India, for any retailer.
Yeah, Venkat, please.
Just one last point.
Yeah, sure.
Some of the ideas that are coming up as possibilities because of the huge engagement that we have all had through Hangouts and Zooms and all that is, each salesperson in every store of ours, for example, and I'm sure it would be relevant for Star Bazaar, for Metro and for Big Bazaar, where the salesperson personally knows her customers or his customers. And, we are imagining, for example, if 15, 20 customers were set up on a Hangout and who are of a similar type, perhaps in terms of profile and liking or for certain kind of products. So there is a certain marketing, a deeper conversation about a new collection or a new type of cheese, for example, or some new wines that we have launched with those people, which no advertising can effectively do. It's almost like television selling. If you understand, where some salesperson talks about something for 15, 20 minutes on TV. So the equivalent of that, because this salesperson knows those 10, 15, 20 customers personally, and they are fans of the brand of Metro or Star Bazaar or whichever brand. So they're willing to come on a call, devote 45 minutes of their time to understand about the new line of cheese that Star Bazaar has launched. And that sort of impels them to create a desire for that cheese as opposed to the usual standard cheese that they may otherwise be buying. Therefore, the excitement that all of us need to create for the discretionary products in each of our categories. Some of it is not at all discretionary, naturally it will come. But a good part, for us, everything is almost discretionary. For Sadashiv, some of it is discretionary. For Martin, a little bit may be discretionary and so on. I mean, I'm not too familiar with the product lines. And so for Arvind. So how do we use the sales staff to build desire for the discretionary so that the walk-ins, either walk-in or online, whichever, but the desire has to begin first.
Yeah, it's a fantastic point around internal branding, and even during the times of change, it wasn't just change for our customers, it was change for our colleagues, and fake news didn't help a lot, and even WhatsApp didn't help the fake news either. So there is definitely a requirement to ensure, again, similar to the cycle that I've spoken about in food retail, where it was hearts and minds. We had to reassure our colleagues that we were safe, we were sanitized, we were probably a safer environment than most. And we had to ensure that they bought into it. We had to ensure that they believed in it. So even the digital communication that I've referred to from a consumer point of view, actually from a colleague point of view, it was just as important, because they're your biggest brand ambassador. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Sure. And I'll just ask all these speakers to, give their closing remarks as in on technology and retail and what they think of the future is. And then we'll wrap up this session. Quick reaction from Arvind if we can start.
See, I will say the most important thing, even before the pandemic and post-pandemic, is knowing your customers, knowing what they want, and fulfilling those in a way that meets their expectations. I'll say exceeds their expectations. Whether it's a product, it's pricing, it's availability, it's a shopping experience, all these things which matter, safety in today's time. So people who will win in this space is who are catering to what their customers are asking for. So you have to be very close to your customer. And in our case, we are very fortunate because we don't deal with crores of customers. We deal with about 3.5 million customers all over the country. So we know exactly what they've bought with us over the last several years. And the key is to make sure that you optimize. So we don't just look at number of customers who are shopping, but also we have a concept called share of wallet. And that's what I think we do on B2B, and probably it's a very valid thing to look at for other retailers too. I think it will be very valid for Tanishq. I am a customer of Tanishq. So share of wallet becomes very important, and technology is basically an enabler. It cannot be the starting point. It's a means to an end, and the end is to how do you make your customers excited about your brand, and how do you make your customers loyal to your brand. That's the role of technology.
Sadashiv.
Yeah, so I agree with him. In fact, the next time when we meet up, Varun, I think your thing was retail's dependence on technology. I would actually swap it around to say, what is technology's dependence on retail? Because I agree with Arvind to say that technology will eventually win when there's a purpose to it. Yeah. Right. So I gave an example about voice commerce. I gave an example about WhatsApp free text to stuff. That's a purpose to it. I'll give a simple problem which I've not been able to solve, which is using technology. Like we have smaller floor plate stores, and we have a lot of trolleys. So I've been asking my design team, show me a way where I can stack up one trolley over the other. I know hypothetically it looks very simple, but frankly, we've not been able to crack it. So to me, even if someone cracks an idea for that part, it's just technology. Right now, we say in the night, we just cover all the trolleys and put it on the floor. Right. So I would end up with saying it's really technology's dependence on retail. I will give an example to end it when the curbside delivery, as you mentioned, what we call customer pickup at store. We tried our best to tell customers what it was, but they were not able to understand because the new concept, I guess they used very effectively in UK. Frankly, when it started succeeding is when we hit a raw nerve. We actually told customers saying, listen, you're anyway going to pick up your order from the store. Why don't you also carry it for Mrs. Mehta, who's 70 years old, staying in your vicinity? And he said, why not? So frankly, to me, technology won here when we actually told the community what it was meant for, rather than saying, this is just helping us do pick up at store. Okay, it didn't mean much to them. But when we said you're actually contributing back to your community, people are not able to come out, here's a quarantined area, why don't you carry and drop a pack? I think the customers really adopted. So I would say it's technology's dependency on retail, and how do you make customers win in this whole journey?
Sure. Venkat, your views?
I would heartily recommend that we stay very close in touch with customers as well as our sales staff on the ground in the stores, and actually design solutions which emerge from that conversation, and not assume that something which looks so smart and fancy will necessarily work.
Sure. Mr. Prasad.
I think post-COVID, I will put it into 3 C's, which are very important for all of us to look at it. The number 1 C is customer. Identify, understand what are the areas that you can help automate. streamline it with no touch, low touch, either human touch and stuff like that. And again, lead with empathy and show that you care for a customer in these times. I think it will go a long way to bring loyalty and drive loyalty for your customers. Number two, I think Venkat really made a great point about community. Could we think about creating a community of similar-minded people? Can we create a virtual meetups for all those people to discuss, generate interest, drive a point? And again, Martin talked about hygiene. And if a fellow customer of mine tells me that, you know what, I visited this store, they're known for hygiene and they're known for XYZ and they're known for what of this, it goes a long way. So building community becomes extremely key as my second C. Third C, I think collaborate. I think meets like this, and I'll talk to other industry leaders and understand what's working and what's not working well. This is the time to collaborate stronger so that you lean on other learnings and what worked rather than trying to reinvent the wheel and probably, we don't have time to fail. I think Martin Dick talked about, the time is actually to leap forward and we don't have time to fail now. Very importantly, wherever possible, be proactive. And again, proactive with your customers. If you don't have a stock where the customer likes, tell them that you don't have a stock. If you really have engagement models of appointments. And if you don't have one, if generating interest, if the customer favorite product is back in the store or in the stock, tell them that your favorite product is back in the stock and it's great hygiene. Again, being proactive and creating collaboration. And I think very important point made about how do you have your employees as your voices out. And engage your employees, very important aspect of it. We always think about engaging customer, but it's very, very important to engage your employees too. I think those are my three C's, customer, community, and again, collaborate across your teams.
Sure, I'll go across to Martin for his views, and then we'll close the session.
Yeah, so in the world where strategy is changing on a daily basis and an hourly basis, and wherever we started in January has definitely changed here in June. Agility is the important thing, but one thing you can't forget is purpose. And I'm referring to food retail, and it's already been mentioned, is the satisfaction of that consumer, and let it be the internal customer or the external customer. Have that as your sole purpose. And technology can be that enabler. It can also be that ability, as I said in my very opening statement, the actual value of using technology is there to be leaner, simpler, and stronger. And at the end of this COVID, if you're not either of those three, then you're in trouble. And I would assume, based on the retail giants that I have beside me, that won't be the case for us. But you have to be agile right now, and technology can help you be agile.
Sure. So with this, we come to an end of this panel discussion. Thank you very much for giving our audience so much of understanding about how technology and retail is going to merge in times ahead. And thank you very much for being such a lovely audience. Thank you all of you.
Thank
Thank you.